if I should wait for the tweaking before I send it forward.
And I think that's really more a question of how how different
Yeah.
the changes would be.
No, the ones that I had were not significant.
Right.
I'll send that off tomorrow.
Okay.
I did
Okay.
post it to the website just now.
Thank you.
earlier. So it's on the village website. So if you tweak it, just send it
Yeah,
to me and
I'll
I'll
get it sent.
update it.
Okay.
Some people were interested in seeing it, so I posted it up there.
Is there a way to get the hard copy of the existing so you can kind of do a
It's-
side-by-side comparison?
It's online.
Right, I have it on,
Oh,
I just didn't know, it'd be easier to flip through page by page rather than
Yeah.
Yeah,
through the internet.
did you get a hard, because,
Yeah, I've got a hard copy
Okay.
of the repeal and the revisions, but I was trying to look at it opposed to the ones that are online and try to
Okay.
follow where the changes were.
I just
I
print
can
it
get
out.
that,
You can print it out.
Yeah.
I've done that right from the website, the
from the
village
E-code,
website.
yeah.
It's all true.
Do you have a computer?
Yeah.
If you take if you want to look at them side by side,
That's
I'm
what.
sure you know how to do like two windows.
Yeah.
and- yeah.
So, any other department head reports or any other department heads here, so.
I will say one thing, I'm gonna send everybody a copy of this, kind of a pet peeve for me. It's Code Red.
Oh, yes.
It's a notification service that, if we do it right, like say we want to do something with East Temple Street. You just take like your little marker and draw around East Temple Street. It'll send everybody on East Temple Street that's on our service a notice of whatever we want to tell
Right.
them. Or same to the south side, it'll do all this stuff. It's,
Like the presidential texts.
yeah, it'll be like a tweet, a village tweet. But it's gonna be roughly like $2,400 a year in that neighborhood. But we can split that between the sewer and general. And like I say, you can do all kinds of notifications with it.
Did they give you a price? Did they call you?
It used to be like $3,800, we said they've lowered the price.
Okay.
And it's one of those things, once you're in the group, they keep the price the same. And they'll send you an email, a phone call, anything that you have a device on, they will send you a notice, when we generate a notice.
rate hike.
Yeah.
Right. I don't
Whatever you
know.
want to put in, you can put in, reminder, taxes are coming out, boom, everybody gets it, so everybody knows what's going on. But they said they used it for the, for example, like the Boston Marathon Bombers, they had a thing out in like 10 minutes to everybody that was on their service, boom, just like.
Yeah.
So it's just, that for the price, it's just something, maybe it would be a really nice thing to have.
Because we did get a lot of heat from the south side, they didn't know that rezoning was going on.
Well, it would have been helpful during the flood, because everybody was so far, you couldn't keep up with all the questions and stuff.
Is it more of an electronic, like texting service, or is it a physical mailing?
It's electronic, it's pretty much all
Email,
electronic.
text.
It's emails and phone
Text,
calls,
email.
electronic phone calls, emails and whatever.
Yeah. I'm just thinking for like planning and zoning purposes to address that issue.
Yeah.
A lot of municipalities have a requirement that there be like a mailing done to the residents. And
For those who don't
what's
have any-
helpful about a mailing is that everybody's got a place for it to go to.
Right.
But if there's a requirement that somebody use texting or email, you're probably getting a lot of comments about how people don't have access to.
So Rusty wouldn't get a text.
But
We'll
you
make
have
it a
phone
phone
number.
call, we'll make it a phone call,
Phone
on the
number.
on the robocall.
Smoke signals will work pretty well.
Yeah.
But,
mean,
so they're gonna come down someday
No, it's
and make,
good.
and do a demonstration for us, so if you're interested,
Okay.
we'll line that up. And we're gonna send you some emails with demonstrations and all. Just something to think about, because in today's day and age, it's kinda nice to.
More communication is good.
Yeah. So people aren't asking, what are we doing on Temple Street?
Right.
Wait, no, it's
Why didn't I hear about it?
swim to pull across from my house.
Yeah.
We got a budget over there.
Yeah, so did I.
Get your mud wrestling.
I came out, I had a
Yeah,
gray
it's-
car.
it's,
It was already gray. It
I know,
was a darker gray.
mine was white, now it's like brown.
I don't know how to slow down, still.
we're going the right way.
Moving along.
Nice street.
Moving along, trustee reports. Fran?
Okay, well, last week was the cemetery committee meeting, which got canceled because the chairperson was ill, and so it's rescheduled for, well, our next meeting is December the 10th at 5 PM here. I also went to the DRI meeting, and the deadline for submission of projects is December the 7th. And I know I haven't discussed it with you, Mayor, but I'm wondering if, as a village board, if we shouldn't put together some ideas that we want to present to the DRI for the
So
benefit of the village properties or whatever.
the,
I think we need to make sure we don't miss out on putting that in.
we can certainly come up with more ideas, but the consultant team is working with, or has worked with each department head, as far as Jerry, Jeff, they met with Danny from the fire department to get their input on what would be good projects. And they kind of formulate those for us, so we don't have to do the application.
Would there be something presented to the board about what those projects are before they get submitted?
I guess, yeah.
Because
Well,
I
sure,
think the
the-
board should have some input on it.
Yeah.
You know, like there's,
It would certainly appear that the village board is not highly involved in this process. I don't mean you guys
No,
are.
yeah,
yeah,
other than there are some of us on the committee.
I would, I mean, if the village is applying for monies, and, you know, I mean, there's an application process. Typically, the board authorizes your signature on an application to be submitted. So I would say that'd be a good idea to have the board review whatever the projects are and then say,
Right.
okay, go ahead and, you know, apply for those things.
because I mean, that submission is, well, is,
And
they'll still take more.
The December 7th date is for
Private.
private sector to send ideas in or applications in to be reviewed by the committee. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the municipal applications will be hammered out by then, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Because the consultants are taking care of the village's projects.
well, I think we should have input on it.
We should, yeah. So we can get them to come in, I'm sure get them to come in and talk to us about our deals. Exactly how that works.
So maybe that's something we need to be looking at our next meeting,
Yeah, I'll give them a,
what our
Yeah.
projects are that we want.
Let's get some new welcome to legal signs. Instead of those old,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things.
something cool.
There- Yeah, that
Yeah.
is part of it, it's the green stuff and
Right.
parks, there is a category for that kind of stuff.
Barb's,
Just jazz it up.
And I think signage would be a part of that.
Rusty?
So the department heads have been contacted by the committee, so do we know what input they gave them yet? We don't know.
No, I can tell you what I
Yeah, they've got a
discussed.
list of stuff.
Most of my stuff was infrastructure.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
Not most of it, all my stuff was.
It's on the list, drainage.
Mhm.
we'd like to know
Well-
that stuff from you. Jerry, did you give them?
I didn't get notified by,
Okay.
Okay,
as of yet.
Yeah.
you should be.
I know you said that
Yeah.
before, that I should be, I didn't wait for a call.
I know they met with Danny, Gavin, about some stuff at the fire station. And I want to say they met with Chief
I don't think they
Kennedy.
met with the police,
I don't know.
they should.
They should.
Yeah,
That building is on the list anyway,
Mhm. Well,
Right.
yeah.
so.
well, maybe I need to speak with you, Jeff, as far as,
What I talked to him about,
Something pretty easy.
yeah.
maybe I need to sit down with you as far as what the cemetery committee wants to have
Mhm.
on that list.
Mhm.
I'll figure.
Yeah,
The cemetery currently is out of the boundary.
Mhm.
Well,
That's ever shifting.
It is.
yes, it said it can change.
It can change, so.
Mhm.
And that the chapel is in the boundary.
Right. Depending where it is on the
And there are a
road,
number of things that need to be done with that.
so.
The, I'm on the planning committee, and what we need to do with the cemetery idea is to connect it with the whole thing is downtown revitalization initiative.
That's how you pitch
So-
it.
Yeah, so we
Right.
have to make sure that the argument is about how that is connected to the downtown
Right.
revival. So
Right.
you need to, that has to be clear from the beginning. And I think a good argument can be made about that, especially if you treat the cemetery as a park. Which it originally
It's part
was
of the
designed,
parks.
yes, which is, so I think I think you can do that, but you can't just say, we need this is stuff that is long overdue, but to connect it to that. And I think that's how they can extend the boundary, that would give them a rationale for extending the boundary to absorb it.
Okay, so these different topics for the
Yeah.
village would really need to be addressed by January, is that it?
I don't know if
According to
we
their
have a-
deadline?
I don't know if we have a specific date. The overall planning process ends in March.
Right,
That's when the final recommendations go into the state, and the state ultimately decides what gets funded and what doesn't.
yeah.
So,
Well, I had the
We can get
impression
them
that they
in
wanted
here.
things to be pretty firm by February.
yeah, somewhere in there.
You know, as far as
So we can get them in
specific
here at some point
details to the plans.
before then, we'll talk about our
It's a tough
portion.
deadline. It's a tough deadline, it's coming up fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it
coming
goes
up
quick.
fast.
It's hard.
I can get with you, Fran, about,
Yeah.
I know Peter dropped off, something to me about,
Mhm.
the chapel, so
Right,
I'll get with you.
okay.
And there is, oh gosh, when the next public engagement event. So there's a local planning committee
That's in
meeting each
January.
month.
I think the
There's
next
a
one for the public's in January.
Public one, January, middle of January, I don't remember the date. All right, anything else, Fran?
No, that's it, thank you.
Charles?
I attended a meeting with the DOT. It was at Marty Sauerberry.
Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, Sauerberry. Concerning the lights on the dark side of the village, on the side, Pink Floyd. So what they said was under $100,000 that we can find this, maybe the same contractors that we had to put in the other lights that we just had put in, or maybe the DRI project, some kind of way, but it would be under $100,000. They explained how the poles, the wooden poles belong to NICEAG, but the lighting fixture
Yeah.
belongs.
Right.
It was a whole discussion,
Did we
even,
buy those ones?
So, the EPC, so we had, lights that were on a rate schedule we changed the rate schedule, we purchased the fixtures, is my understanding.
Right.
The poles remain NICEAG's,
yeah,
and that's, funded through an energy performance contract. The idea is that the change from one type of lighting to another, the difference in energy costs will pay for itself on that. The village did have to take out a loan to initially pay that, and then the expectation is the savings will pay the loan off over a period of time. So you could do, if there are a bunch of other lights and it makes sense, another EPC with some company to replace those lights. Hopefully there'd be a savings to pay off the funding or the
Actually, the lights Charles is talking about on Southside Drive are metal poles that are actually owned by DOT.
Hmm.
Oh,
the village owner
So
pay
where's
for
the-
the lights on that.
No, we cut them off a long time ago. It's,
He's wiring.
well, the wires supplying those lights are underground. DOT did a project over there. Their contractor dug through it in several spots.
oh, they did got the lights on.
We own, let me get this straight now, we either, and I'd have to go back through my notes, we either own the conduit or the wire. And NICEAG owns either the conduit or the wire, whichever we don't own. So NICEAG owns some, we own some, and DOT owns the lights. To repower those, we have to redo the power source. When we looked into doing it, it was like a couple of $100,000 to do it. It was like 20 or $225 a foot or something like that. I'd have to go back through my notes. I mean, we could still do it using the existing poles, but the power source has to be redone there.
There was a concern about it becoming a safety issue because there's the residence that's in there, or was it Garden 1 and 2?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, there's one particular person who rides their motorized scooter down there and across the bridge to Price Chopper several times a week, and it gets dark like 5:30, and other than the reflective triangle on there, I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's more safety concern there now with more housing going in over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
They even talked about a sidewalk project, but that was beyond the heights. So.
Yeah,
That'd be a good project to put in.
Yeah, but what they're talking about is not, like, what they have now is a bicycle lane that's in the street. What they were proposing is something like a 5-foot or certain width that contains pedestrian and bicycle, it's raised, it's around,
that's cool.
almost like a river walk without the river.
There was, it was a topic that was brought up as a candidate for a DRI grant.
Right.
Maybe not specifically, but generally about what you're speaking.
Yeah.
And the reason that they stretched the parameters across the river like that was because they said this is the other gateway into the village. And that sort of justified that. And then also trying to connect the people, the residents on one side of the village, to the other safely. So it's possible, people seem to be interested in that. It's possible that they could receive some funding for partial or all of that project.
Right.
So I would say hold off until, make an application and see what
Right.
happens.
I think that's the route we're gonna go. We need to get an estimate, an accurate estimate to make the application.
Right, well, it looks like Jeff might have some, it's dated, but it would be something to put on the application.
Starting
Figure that
place,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a good time, we're gonna get some funding to turn those
Yeah.
lights back on. And switch them over to LEDs or something.
We do have surplus LED heads,
Oh, cool.
15 or 16 of them, so.
There's more than that, we have a map, but there's a bunch of lights over there. Buy more of them. Rusty, got anything?
Well, I just wanna finish that up. Also, after listening to complaints about drug trafficking in abandoned buildings on McMaster Street, I took it upon myself to go over and speak to some of the residents, and I had posted something that,
Chestnut,
in hindsight,
Chestnut Street.
Chestnut, that's right, Chestnut, that in hindsight, that I should not have, was pictures of the properties, but there was one in particular that the residents still live there. And it was only up for 10 minutes, but it was taken down, but it caused such an, I can't say a negative word, but people were glad that we were stepping up and doing something, because the comment was made that the board's doing nothing. We had another board, they're doing nothing, so I went out there to do something. And I think it was a little bit too much something. So, there is something being done.
Okay.
About that. It's just that I didn't mean to cause it uproar. Or put us in a bad light. Actually, I put us in a good light. But
Speaking on that, Charles,
Trouble.
115, 117 Chestnut?
yeah, this is the pink house right behind the gas station. I got.
Oh, yeah, that's a different one.
Yeah, there's a white house in the middle of the block further
That's what
down.
he's talking about.
That's the one you're talking about. It has posted notes on it.
Right, well, we're gonna,
People were chased out of there last week. I was actually in the street with my car, and I had one of the tenants, they came out and they were talking to me, and they were actually narrating what was happening as people were walking down the street towards us in the middle of the street, and they said, now this person's gonna go and turn into this, and sure enough. So it's confirmed, stuff is happening out there.
well, we're gonna board that whole structure up, so,
You know?
Is that the one the land bank owns now?
yes.
So that one's scheduled to come, the land bank did get funding, and they're gonna start, move forward with taking some of those down.
But I just couldn't sit around and just do nothing. I mean, maybe it has something to do with Stan Lee passing, I just had that superhero thing kind of going on there. But, yeah, people are upset, and very well so, because I know how I felt just sitting on my porch watching drug activity, which was going on. So, I feel for
You
this.
stirred up the process.
Yeah.
And Charles, I know people are asking, why isn't the village board doing something, but numerous police agencies are doing quite a number of things.
Which I found out today.
So,
Which I didn't know.
they think that that's something that we're supposed to be taking care of, but there's a tremendous.
Yeah,
amount of
there's something happening
Yeah.
there. But at least they see that I represented the board and,
Yeah.
yeah. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'll be good.
Ron?
This probably follows the same note, because I live right on Temple and Chestnut. But I get a lot of traffic going the wrong way. I'm sure it's probably related to the same activities. But I mean, it's a few times a day at least. It's a lot of kids that like to play in the street sidewalk area without a lot of supervision. It just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Probably. Did you let, Joe Kennedy know?
I have no idea. I was hoping I'd see him tonight.
Yeah, he did message me, he's at a school security training thing or something. Just a wall. Is that it?
And another one of our kind of unsolvable problems, we have Page Street, we have Spencer, we have a number of streets where the sidewalk is right on the street, no curb.
I know.
Families with little kids, it's always scary on every one of these streets, and parents letting their children play on that sidewalk with those streets is, but another unsolvable one. I have, something about, from the police department, personnel. Should we have an executive session to discuss these things?
Yes. How do we wanna word this?
And I,
Well, the mayor and I,
You're-
there's an executive session that's not on the agenda right now, but an executive session
I'll
for
leave it to you,
purposes of
'cause I hate
discussing,
executive sessions.
compensation, employment, termination, suspension, discipline, all those fun words, of department head employees.
I'll leave it to you, I'm done.
Very good. Alright, so I'll do my mayor's report before we do executive session in case anybody doesn't wanna hang around for that. Went to the DRI meeting. Now, I met with Jan. All the good stuff the last couple of weeks, been busy. I emailed the report out to you guys. I just did it now though, so I didn't print it out. I posted the last meeting up. I put the OHPC law online, I just did that. And then, took a lot of complaints from the storm.
For what?
From the storm.
Oh,
Jeff was getting tired of me, I'm sure.
Never.
I did give the guys who showed up to plow out those cars that got themselves stuck in a turnaround, cookies and coffee.
that's nice of you.
Did I bring them for you?
No, I always miss out on that.
That's all I got. So, should we do the executive session? We
You
need
need a
a
Um,
motion.
You might want to do public comment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did they
Meet
meet
public.
and everything?
Well, first of all, I want to thank, we're in Thanksgiving, I want to thank all of you for your public service to all of us. You really, I know you hear a lot of complaints, but what you do is really important, so thank you. Yeah, just for the new guys, this whole new law is to reinstate or to create a new commission. And the commission, having a commission allows the village to apply for recertification as a certified local government, which is a very good thing for the village in terms of applying for grants and things. This is long-term planning. After the DRI has come and gone, the CLG will be something for us to look after. A couple of the main difference between what is currently happening, we are an advisory committee, and periodically you've seen me come and say, I think you guys should approve this. wouldn't have to do that. You know, we would be acting again independently. One of the changes that in particular, Trustee Morton and I have been working collaboratively on this for months, and so he's very knowledgeable about this. So if you wanted to talk to another trustee, he would be a person. But he also wanted to make sure that there was other input. We've gone down from 7 members to 5 members, which was okay with us. But you know, we also have 5 auxiliary members, non-voting, that the mayor can appoint. And that way, if there are any controversial or things coming up, people can come to our decision-making, give their input, and that way the board would have, or people that, just not board members, but anybody that you would want to have as an auxiliary member would have an opportunity to give input, you know, so that we could give the best decisions that we can. We're revising the application process, we're revising the guidelines, and the other big chunk is this preservation specialist, there's a piece in there that is basically lifted from the Binghamton law, which has a historic preservation. This is a professional level person that would help, especially in this DRI thing where we might get a whole lot of paperwork coming at us. And, you know, we're just volunteer people, you know, doing this. But would make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted as far as the application process was concerned. And that is very helpful in that kind of a situation. But we can do our job without that. You know, we can. We have been doing it, and we can. So just so when you're talking about code enforcement, I'm all for full-time code enforcement above a preservation planner kind of thing. I don't think the village can do well without a full-time code enforcement officer. Just from me doing this kind of work and talking to people and getting close up and looking at these buildings that are trying to stay up and running safely. It's even just the facades falling down, you know, we're going to try to get all that cleaned up. So that's a major difference. So that is only in there. That does not mean that we have to have this person in order for the commission to run. It's just in there to say this is a kind of certificate of appropriateness that this person could give if they were hired. And so that there's a whole bunch of stuff like an administrative certificate so that they don't have to come in front of the full commission if they're just doing repair work and in-kind stuff. It's just that kind of thing. Jeff, one of the things that we're going to also do is come up with a real paper certificate of appropriateness to put up. Other districts do this with the, that way people know there's a process to go through and all that.
Yeah.
And so that's about it, you know, and obviously I've been advocating for this for about a year, and I think it's really a good thing for the village. And so if there's any questions or clarification, I'm around, you know, to answer. And so is Nate. He's and Ed is very knowledgeable too. So we've been working on this together. I think that's the important thing to understand, that it's been collaborative, and I've been very appreciative about that. So that's about it. Thank you. You don't have to leave and go to the back room. I'll leave.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion for the executive session.
It's not me, I can do executive sessions. I'm not making a motion.
I will. We need a second.
I second it.
Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain? Yes.
That's enough.
Nate, will you get a message from the county about the law? Will they communicate with you?
Once they review it at the meeting tomorrow, they'll send a response letter.
Okay.
You wanna go home?
Maybe Charles.
Tell me.
Yeah.